talking about the big story of the day, comedian and actor Russell Brand. Now, he has been accused of rape, sexual assault and emotional abuse. The allegations were part of a joint investigation by The Times and The Sunday Times and Channel 4. One woman alleges that Brand assaulted her when he was 31 and she was 16. She described her relationship with him to Channel 4's Dispatches programme.
He's like, so how many people have you had sex with? And I said, no one. Like, I've never had sex with anyone. And he got an erection straight away. And he was like, oh my God, he's like, my baby, and picked me up and cradled me in his arms like a child and was stroking my hair. And he's like, you're like my little dolly. Russell engaged in the behaviours of a groomer. Looking back on it, I didn't even know what that was then or what that looked like. He would try to drive a wedge between me and my parents, taught me to lie to them.
Well, of course, some people may find some of that content disturbing. Now, Russell Brand has denied all allegations in the video posted online.
Amidst this litany of astonishing, rather baroque attacks are some very serious allegations that I absolutely refute. These allegations pertain to the time when I was working in the mainstream, when I was in the newspapers all the time, when I was in the movies, and as I've written about extensively in my books, I was very, very promiscuous. Now, during that time of promiscuity, the relationships I had were absolutely always consensual. I was always transparent about that then, almost too transparent, and I'm being transparent about it now as well.
So putting the allegations against Brand to one side, he's just the latest in a series of high-profile celebrities who've been subject to media coverage of allegations about their behaviour. Over the past decades, we've seen the likes of Jimmy Savile, Harvey Weinstein and others exposed as criminals by the media. But some others, like Kevin Spacey, have been accused in the media and have had their reputation damaged before them being acquitted. I mean, of course, there was the media circus which surrounded actors Johnny Depp and Amber Heard last year, a frenzy whipped up globally by the media, trial by media in full swing. Also, you had the thing with Cliff Richard as well. But does a trial by media risk jeopardising a fair hearing for individuals, especially if the mainstream media and social media act as judge, jury and executioner? So joining me to discuss this is barrister and writer at The Spectator, Stephen Barrett. Stephen, thank you for joining me. Now, what are the potential issues with allegations being reported in the media rather than going through the police and the justice system?
Yes, well, thank you for asking me that. And everything I'm about to say has nothing to do with this individual. I don't think I've ever seen anything this individual's been in. And in the film A Man for All Seasons, the saint Sir Thomas More makes this point, the point I'm going to make, and the example he gives is the devil. So that's the worst type of person that Sir Thomas More could possibly imagine, literally Satan. And he says, even Satan deserves the protection of law. And this is true. And it's not necessarily the journalists themselves, but there was an immediate follow-up to the Times article, particularly on Twitter, where seemingly otherwise respectable individuals were announcing that they believed the individual guilty. They were conducting a trial by media. And a trial by media is, to do that, you step outside the rule of law. You shatter law itself. It's the greatest offence you can do to law. You're denying due process. It really is bad conduct. And frankly, I do link all this back to what happened in Parliament. They did voluntarily step outside the rule of law. But when you step outside the rule of law, and I call it, it's like riding a tiger. It seems really fun. You're riding a massive man-eating tiger, and it's jolly fast. You're moving forward, it's eating people right in front of you, which is very exciting and dramatic. You've got the illusion that you're in control of where the tiger goes, and you're ignoring the fact that eventually you're going to fall off the tiger. And when you fall off the tiger, it's going to eat you. And every time humanity has stepped outside the rule of law, because humans do this, human civilization has done this quite a lot of times. Rope spear, there was a priest down in Italy who did this and ended up burned alive, when he'd run out of people to burn alive himself. When you step outside the rule of law, you are really shattering something that is very, very important to us, more important probably than any individual concern. And it used to be in this country, and I think it's still a constitutional need, that respectable people uphold the rule of law, that we don't risk prejudicing future trials, because that's really important too. I mean, if individual X is guilty, I want them found guilty. I mean, that's really important. But we do seem to increasingly, and you raised it, you don't have to think back many weeks or months before the last time we did this. And if we keep doing it, it is going to cross a line, and it's going to move from responsible journalism into trial by media and abandoning the rule of law. And it's just not a place I'll ever join you all, Anna. I'll stay here in my law library with the rule of law, because it's not a safe place to be.
So in your view then, what role should the media actually play then in holding powerful people to account? Because, for example, the issue with Jimmy Savile was that the media wouldn't talk about it.
The media have a really important role, and when people forget how our constitution works, and they go on about, I won't bore you, but they go on about there being 3 pillars of state. There aren't. The media is a very important pillar of the state, and the media works well when it works hand in glove with the other pillars of the state. What we can't get to is a position where the media is working on its own. We have a justice system. We have a police, system. We have a means of investigating these allegations and bringing them to justice. The media can work hand in glove with them as a respectable part of the Constitution. That's why, incidentally, Nana, that there is a press gallery inside the House of Parliament. That's an admission that the press are important in our society. I'm not saying they're not important, but what followed on from the press activity, so perhaps we're not even necessarily pointing at them yet, was the social media response. Yeah. And this idea that you must, to be a morally good individual in our society, you must immediately declare this individual guilty. Now, no. That's you've stepped outside the rule of law. You've gone somewhere very dark, and I'm not going with you. I'm not saying anyone's innocent. I'm defending due process. Yeah. And saying that it is valuable in itself.
Yeah, and that is something that people should all respect, actually. And in your view, why do you think people go to the media to air allegations like this, or like any of the ones that we've spoken of before, rather than actually going to the police?
Well, humans will have infinite reasons for doing everything. And again, one of the ways that we are eroding due process is to look at intention. Yeah. What was the intention that happened? We almost need to look past that. Are the police and authorities being involved is the important question. And then there's another important constitutional point. Then we all shut up, because we don't want to prejudice a future trial. If there's going to be a future trial, it's constitutionally incumbent on us all to stay silent in order to make sure that a future jury is left inviolate and able to do its duty with the facts it has in a proper way. This is often thought of as a point of criminal law. It isn't. It's constitutional law. But in my area of law, because we got rid of juries, we often worry about it a lot less. We sort of have a view of, the judge can deal with this. If there's a few tweets, the judge isn't going to read them. If there's a newspaper article, it's not going to sway up a high court judge. Of course it isn't. And I accept that. But it does mean that we sort of treat this like a sort of criminal problem. It's not. It's fundamental to the administration of justice. And the administration of justice is fundamental to our state. Yeah. That's why without the rule of law, you get close to state collapse. That's what happened. It is that bad. I'm not being overly dramatic. In his famous speech, the fictional Sir Thomas More, says that when the devil turns on you, that there will be a whirlwind. If you've cut down, he uses the analogy, all the trees of England keep you safe. The laws are planted like trees. You cut them all down, you're not going to survive that whirlwind. And it is that dangerous. It is that risky. It's not fun.
Well, listen, Stephen, thank you so much for your insight. Really good to talk to you. That's Stephen Barrett. He's a barrister and a writer for The Spectator. If you just joined me, this is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio, coming up to 16 minutes after 3 o'clock. Going head-to-head with me today, former advisor to Jeremy Corbyn, James Schneider, and the deputy editor of Spiked, Fraser Myers. Right, first, I'm going to start with you, Fraser. I mean, what do you think about this whole business that trial by media? Because I think, Stephen makes a very good point that if we do this, then we end up in a situation where people are found guilty or innocent before actually the real points have been assessed.
Yeah, that's right. I think obviously it is completely legitimate for the media to air these allegations and to do these kinds of investigations. I think that's a very important part of the press's job in holding the powerful to account. But there is a danger in a world where we say, we must believe all women, or, in a kind of Me Too climate where it's assumed that too many people are getting away with things that and they shouldn't, that we lose sight of the presumption of innocence, we lose sight of due process. Now, I really hope a legal process does kick off from this, because sometimes when it is just allegations in the media, what you end up with is people are in a sort of limbo where they are declared guilty by the press or by, in the court of public opinion, and they don't actually have the avenue to either clear their name or be properly punished. And we mete out kind of extrajudicial punishments on people nowadays. People lose their jobs, they lose their livelihoods, when they're sort of tainted with these allegations. I think that is a serious problem. I'd like to see these allegations tested in court, and if they prove to be correct, then for there to be punishment.
James Schneider.
Well, I think Russell Brand should address specifically the allegations that have been put, rather than sort of a blanket denial. But that's beside the point of the wider issue, which is, yes, of course, the media is extremely powerful, and it has the power to set agendas, and so we should have a slightly sceptical approach when we view it. But again, in this, about this case, it says that it's, the headline is something like hiding in plain sight. Well, then a lot of the media should also be looking at it at itself, because it had a show on the BBC, on Channel 4, which has aired the documentary. So if part of the purpose of this investigation is to shine a light on the wider culture that we had, that was pretty misogynistic and in lots of ways quite crude and unpleasant in the late noughties, let's say, then large parts of the media need to look at themselves as well.
Well, listen, of course, this thing will carry on, and we will keep an eye on it here on GB News. So stay with us. Loads more still to come, but a BBC spokesperson said Russell Brand worked for a number of different organisations, of which the BBC was one. Indeed, the BBC has, over successive years, evolved its approach to how it manages talent and how it deals with complaints or issues raised. We have clear expectations around conduct at work, and these are set out in employment contracts and the BBC values, the BBC Code of Conduct, and the anti-bullying and harassment policy. And of course, a Channel 4 spokesperson said Channel 4 is appalled to learn of these deeply troubling allegations. We have found no evidence to suggest the alleged incidents were brought to the attention of Channel 4. We will be asking the production company who produced the programmes for Channel 4 to investigate these allegations.